Okay, welcome everybody. I'm excited. This afternoon, I have a very special guest with me, Mr. Ladre Gilbert, who's based here in Atlanta, Georgia, and he's also a FAMU Rattler alum. So say hello to everybody, Mr. Ladre.
Hello, everybody. Mr. Charlton, thank you for having me on here today. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here. Appreciate the opportunity to discuss issues as a correlation between, legal justice as it relates to mental health.
Mhm.
I have an extensive, background and experience in that matter, and I'd, you know, love the opportunity to see and have this conversation with you, brother. Thank you
Yeah,
for the
let's.
opportunity.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Let's jump right into it. If you could describe your professional background, just give everybody kind of overview of how your career has gone in the legal field.
Okay, so I'm a 2004 graduate of FAMU School of Business and Industry.
Mm,
And then I am a 2008 graduate of Family College of Law.
mm.
And I took the non traditional route of jumping right out into my own practice. I have my own practice in Marietta, Florida from 2009 up until about 2012, 2013. I'm sorry,
Sorry.
2021, 2022 up in that area. Over that time, I've had opportunity to do some personal injury cases. I've had a chance to do criminal cases, and I had an opportunity to do um, probate cases. And then along the way of building that practice, I did a little bit of family law, so some other general civil stuff. Yeah,
Mhm.
so but what I'm actually here now doing is I'm in the Atlanta area, and I'm actually doing legal consulting now for firms. One of the firms I'm with now is a PI firm, and I go in and I basically help consult with them, help them prepare for going to court and every other, like other aspects of legal process. And so yeah, man, I find it a whole lot more fulfilling and a whole lot less stressful
Yeah.
to be able to go in on the consulting side and not have to commit so many resources myself to actually facilitate these cases, man. But I love what I do, man. I love to be able to help people and
Uh-huh.
be able to help provide that advocacy for them.
Yeah. Well, I hear the passion that you have for it, and that's really what jumps out at me. No matter who I'm working with, different industries, people that come to therapy, whenever you're passionate about it, it's hard to turn away from. And I think that's how we initially connected. We were
Right.
talking about. I think we met at like a men's group meeting in
Mhm.
Atlanta, and then you told me you went to FAMU. We were there probably on campus around the same time. So I
Right.
finished in 2005, and you were there up until 2008 with the law
Okay.
school
Yeah.
program. So if you could, it sounds like you touched so many different areas in law. But tell
Right.
me what inspired you to pursue that career path.
So you know how it is, like when you're young, you do pretty good in grades. So
Yeah.
everybody tells you you're either gonna be a doctor or a lawyer. So I had
Yeah.
that
Uh-huh.
expectation placed upon me from a very young age. My parents never really put that type of pressure on me, but other people, my teachers and other people around the community. And so as about high school, I realized that I wasn't really good at science. So I
Okay.
decided I wanted to go I wanted to pursue being an attorney. Now, my mom, she had gotten injured when I was a teenager on her
Mm,
job. And one of the
okay.
things I see with my mom is that she had to go at herself in the beginning. She was going back and forth with the insurance adjusters, and
Hmm.
she had a hard time explaining herself because she wasn't an educated woman. And she had a hard time explaining herself. And I just see her get frustrated and cry. And then
Right.
one time, she was speaking with an adjuster on the phone. I saw her just break down and cry because she couldn't convey what it was that what her issue was. And so in that moment, I grabbed the phone from her and I started speaking to the adjuster and basically,
Right.
at that time gave him a piece of my mind or what I thought was my mind.
I love
And,
it.
and-
Yeah.
yeah, and he came and he was like, you should consider going to law school. And so even when I had opportunity to go to law school, I worked for Daryl Parks and Ben Crump in Tallahassee and saw
Hmm.
how they help people, how they,
Hmm.
they really were able to, go and get justice for the
That's right.
underserved communities. And I had an opportunity to work for John Morgan and see
Uh-huh.
how, he really was an advocate for the community, for the smaller person, right? And one
Hmm.
of my idols, he was the subject of the movie The Burial, Willie Gary. I always tried to style myself after Willie Gary, but it was always about trying to take on the underdog. Try to
Hmm.
represent the person. And going back to the passion of my mom. I thought to myself, like, if my mom is going through this issue, how many other people that look like her in her similar demographic that were having these same problems, not having a voice and an advocate to speak up for them. And so
Yeah.
that's what got me into the law.
Oh man, that's inspiring. I hear that so many times when I talk to attorneys who are clients of mine. Like, there's always like a real story that really kind of motivates them, whether it's dealing with different immigration laws, the experiences that they've had, maybe families coming from other countries.
Right.
I had a lady who was in a relationship with a guy, and he ended up getting in some legal trouble, and
Mhm.
she was just kind of floating through life, and ended up, wanting to help him in his legal situation,
Right.
and it inspired her to go back to law school, and now she's an attorney. But your story, especially when it hits home with your mom,
Right.
like, that
Absolutely.
shows love, and she was, I'm sure, grateful for having you then, and then it just kind of how that seed was planted and it
Yes,
grew. And you
absolutely.
work with some names like when you mentioned Morgan, that's John Morgan, Morgan and Morgan.
Yes, sir. That's
That's all over.
the John
Yeah,
Moore. Yeah,
and then
he's that guy. Yes, sir.
yeah,
Yeah.
you see that advertisement everywhere, and Attorney Crump has been in the headlines national quite a bit. I know.
Yeah. And I think, the thing about, the common bond among those attorneys that I mentioned, my mentors, people look at the money, right? They look
Hmm.
at the end result, they look at the money and the success they
Right.
have. But I
Hmm.
think ultimately these people, like you said, they have a story, they have a passion.
Hmm.
Look at Willie Gary's story, how he, had such a struggle coming up, man, such
Hmm.
a struggle through school, such a struggle through law school.
Yeah.
And then we finally got over the hump, man, done tremendous work for people. John Morgan, I mean, that's his thing, man. He fights for the people, the
Yeah.
underdog. Ben Crump, he's always on the front lines, man. You see
Hmm.
him out there putting himself out there whenever we go through some, unfortunately, some of America's greatest tragedies as it relates to the African American community, man. He's
That's right.
on the front lines, and but when you go behind the scenes, you peek behind that curtain, man. There's that story there. There's that inspiration of
Hmm.
what motivated them to get there.
Yeah.
And man, I've had man, countless mentors, and it always seemed to be the same thing. They all had that passion that was born out of it. It's not just about the money. The money's good. Like, don't get me
Hmm.
wrong.
Yeah, I remember. I know Willie Gary had a home down in Stewart,
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah,
southeastern middle part of Florida.
yeah.
And I was in high school, I think, and my mom heard about something. He had an annual party, maybe,
Right,
but he was so personable. It was sort of like when I heard about it, I was like, "Where are we going again?" And he was doing like
right.
this annual party, and he had like a massive. It was like a festival at his house, I think it
Hmm.
was. And he had the Temptations performed. It was crazy. Betty Wright was there. But
Yeah.
I kind of started to pay attention to him then, because he was kind of up on the same level with Johnny Cochran in a way. Like, his name was sort of in the same circle.
One thing I did, and I know we got a whole conversation ahead of us, man. But there was one thing that I saw him do that inspired me when I was in law school. He
Hmm.
had this video that talked about, like, a promotional video of his, and he went and spoke at his old school. He told all the kids there, if they
Hmm.
made a certain type of grade, that when he came back a year later, he'd all take them to get a hamburger at Burger King. It was something simple. He went back and did it, and then when I was older, I did the same thing at my school. And
Nice.
now my school hit me for a lot more than Burger King. But that's just
I
something
hear
like,
you.
yeah, I took directly from him to be able to go and do that. And it's just all about, man, like, man, being able to be in a position to give back, man.
Hmm.
That's the beautiful thing about, being able to have a career and have success, is being able to give back. Now, me, I've gone through some personal challenges. People that know me know I've gone through personal challenges in my career, some things I've had to overcome. But
Hmm.
in the day, even now in the community, man, I may not be, the where I once was, but
Hmm.
I still work. I still
Yeah,
work in the community. I still try to give back, because to me, it's just imperative. I mean, that's just like the rent we pay to live,
that's right.
and
Yeah.
be able to have a good, peaceful life, is to
Hmm.
get back and help the less fortunate. So that's something that is very, and my mom and my dad instilled that in me, to want to be able to make sure you give back and do so. I really
Hmm.
appreciate them for that, and I really appreciate the opportunity to be able to do that.
Oh man. So yes, thank you already for sharing this part of your story, because
Right,
who knows where this will reach, if it reaches a few or many.
right.
This is just what I love, just regular people. It's very inspiring, and seeing that there's a lot of good happening in our community, local Atlanta communities. A lot of connections will continue to occur. But
Mhm.
now I want to, go into another question topic for you to speak when it comes to mental health as it relates to my profession. Primarily, I deal with individual therapy for clients, hour by hour, working with adults from all different walks of life, all over the country. And one thing I wanted to ask, what's been your experience in terms of how mental health in the criminal justice system or the legal system overall, how do they intersect? How many times can you think of, or the most impactful moments that you've had where you can clearly see that mental health was a big part of what was happening in the legal system?
Man, Charlton, this is a very important and impactful question that I wish got asked more,
Hmm.
right? When we start to correlate the criminal justice system with mental health. And and I'm glad you gave me this platform. And I'm glad you're giving others a platform to be able to speak about this. Man, mental health is as ingrained in the justice system, or we'll speak specifically about the actors in the justice system, but
Hmm.
it's so ingrained, man, as much as hamburgers and French fries,
Okay.
cinnamon and apple pie. I mean, it's really truly hand in hand. I mean,
Hmm.
there's no way to separate it. You think about just the makeup of this country, whether it be class, whether it be economics,
Hmm.
education, so many factors. But the majority of the people that commit crimes in this country, I believe they do so based on trauma that they have experienced, right? Through, I mean, just an elongated period of time, untreated mental health issues. I mean, sometimes you go to court and you'll see clients or you'll see people that are their defendants or sometimes even plaintiffs, but people go there and man, that they needed therapy at a
Hmm.
younger age.
Hmm.
They needed an intervention earlier, right?
Hmm.
Now, this is the end result. They're standing there. Maybe they've taken someone's life. That's an extreme.
Hmm.
Maybe
Hmm.
they've broken into someone's home. Maybe they have, endeavored to go out and, deal in, selling, drugs or being able to, try to prosper financially off the, trade legal narcotics or illegal drugs.
Hmm.
But then you think about like what got them there,
Hmm.
especially when you start to think about, man, so many brilliant brothers,
Yep.
that go before the court and they haven't, and you think to yourself like, man, this person probably could have been a mathematician, probably could have probably been a physician, this probably person could probably have been a CEO, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
But what got them there? And I think that dealing, like going back and looking at traumas, man, like, again, the demographics, broken homes, not
Hmm.
having two-parent households. That's not the end all be all because,
Hmm.
people like that commit crimes too. But two-parent households, thinking about, like people that are having, and I think now we're speaking more about it, but I mean, just, coming down on being from one generation to the next, passed down, just inheriting mental health issues,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
Man, I've seen, one young man that I represented at one point in time, man, he was a very promising football star. I mean,
Hmm.
this guy he was a 5-star recruit. He had everyone in the country that wanted to deal with him. But
Wow.
man, but just for some reason, man, his dad died at a very young age. And
Hmm.
that's something that, like it's almost like there was like a mental stamp in time that he
Yeah.
was never able to get past that.
Hmm.
And then he started acting out, and people didn't look at it as this is a mental health issue. They looked at him as a bad kid. So now he's labeled. Now
Yeah.
he's treated differently in the school system. Because he's treated differently in the school system, now he starts to lose self-esteem in himself. And it's like his athletic abilities aren't enough to supplement that part of him that's missing. And at the end of the day, he is a 6'5", 280-pound monster on the
Hmm.
field,
Hmm.
but on the inside, he's a 6 or 7-year-old
That's right.
baby that just
Yeah.
misses his daddy. And I don't think there's enough. I had the pleasure, man, of I mean, just a blessing where I got an opportunity to speak at Harvard, man, and we talked about the pathway to reentry
Okay.
and how when people come out of jail, how society receives them and how we're able to help them, or how can society do a better job of receiving them and helping them reacclimate. And one of the things I talked about is the mental health aspect. I mean, like, not only, when you go through, and man, trust me, man, I've been through all this stuff firsthand on both sides. That's part of my story, and I don't shy away from it.
Okay.
I mean, like, you had, I mean, you're in a cage. You get chained. You're in a cage. You go when someone puts a money amount on your freedom, and then you
Yes,
get
sir.
out, and then you're part of a system where you're very strictly monitored, and you're very strictly, you have to, your life is not really yours anymore, like
Yeah.
it belongs to someone else. I mean, you have to basically ask them, can you go here? Can you go there? Check in with them, and all these different type of things that, these people experience.
Mhm.
So becoming a part of this system, man, is like, I've seen so many times you get to a courtroom, and so many times you see someone charged with something, and bro, you probably do it on TV now, man. You probably see some things that come across, and you think to yourself, like, man, there's no way that person's in their right mind. You know,
Absolutely. Yeah.
I don't believe anybody that harms children, especially their children, can be in their
Mhm.
right mind. I
Yeah.
don't think anyone that harms their their loved ones, their siblings, their mother, their father, grandparents, they can't be someone that's dealing with a mentally stable person. But I just
Mhm.
wish that there were more options in the court system, in the criminal justice system, to deal with these mental health issues, to help this person get well, as opposed to locking them in a cage,
Yeah.
throwing away the key, and then saying, okay, all right, maybe 5, 10, 15, 20 years, we're not going to treat you. We're going to release you back out after having you locked down, where you develop a whole entirely different set of mental
Mhm.
health issues. And now we're going to turn you back on society, which is, I think, why you see a very high rate of reoffense when
That's
people
right.
have been,
Mhm.
and then it becomes
Repeat.
that cycle.
Mhm.
It becomes that cycle.
So we will probably have follow-up conversations, because
Okay.
I can, my mind has more questions as you speak, and then I'll
Absolutely.
have other people that might contribute to this conversation in the future. But
Absolutely.
just to look at the economic factor, for instance, when I look at mental health, there was the first edition of the DSM that came out years and years ago, which is diagnostic manual that we use for um, diagnosing a mental health
Yeah.
assessment. You come up with a diagnosis. It started as a pamphlet, maybe, just very small pamphlet. That first DSM was just a little piece of paper, a few pages. We've expanded that to the most recent DSM-5. It's like this thick,
Hmm.
and all of those diagnoses, in a nutshell, produce billing opportunities, if you think of it that way.
Right.
And it's, certain things have been helpful to just get more understanding of mental health
Hmm.
as we're, evolving as a society. But there's always an economic part to it. Everything that we do in this country particularly has some type of financial tie. And once money gets involved, you see funny things happen.
Right.
So when you look at the criminal justice system, legal system entirely, it's no secret that there's a financial component to it. How the system works is there's some money that comes through those different channels. And with that being said, what do you believe the progression has been from your career, from your research and history? Like, what do you believe in terms of the financial impact could be the motivation for things to change when you just look at it through how the money side works?
Oh man, well, I tell you what. Charlton, you trying to get me in trouble, man?
I know I don't want to stay. Don't say nothing because I know we all got.
I'm joking, man.
Uh-huh.
That is definitely an elephant that needs to be broken down and eaten a piece at a time, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a historical aspect to it. When you think about in this country, incarceration, and you think about like the
What about private
employment.
prisons and all of that
Yeah,
stuff?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Come up.
You think about like, I mean, those are jobs, right?
Mm-hmm.
Correctional officers, the law enforcement, court system. I mean, all of these are jobs, right? And
Yeah.
and with any job, in order for the job to you be able to sustain the employment, to sustain the industry,
Mm-hmm.
there has to be a product, which is it
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately becomes the criminal that's processed, and
That's
all
right.
those people in the process that need to be that
Mm-hmm.
have to be employed.
Mm-hmm.
Also, and I think that from a historical standpoint, well, let's just not say historical. I'm gonna leave that part alone. I'll just say,
Okay.
if you look at other countries, Charlton,
Mm-hmm.
other countries have a lower, particularly European countries, they have a lower offender rate, they have a lower incarceration rate, and then they have a very low reoffense rate, because they treat incarceration and the criminal justice system, they treat it exactly what it's supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
If you commit a crime, you are assigned to do a certain amount of time. That time is not done with any stripping of your dignity.
Mm-hmm.
It's not done with any means or reason to try to tear you down or tear you away. You did something,
Mm-hmm.
and so now you have to pay for the times you committed that offense.
Mm-hmm.
When you get out, there are programs that are in place to ensure
Mm-hmm.
that they are working with you to make sure that you are dealing with your mental health issues,
Mm-hmm.
and that you get you get the resources that maybe you were missing before.
Mm-hmm.
So whenever you get out, there is a greater chance that you'll be able to get out and be successful.
Yeah.
Other societies have, for all intents and purposes, eliminated access to guns. Now, I'm not trying to go down that route. I'll just
Yeah.
say,
Yeah. We know. Yeah.
you
Mm-hmm.
eliminate the access to guns, and so, like, again, your crime rate is low. I mean, you have countries, you have societies that have said that, hey, we're going to treat the criminal justice system as it should be, to punish people that commit crimes, and that
Mm-hmm.
punishment is going to be commensurate with what they do, and we're going to try to, in the process, make sure that they do their time, and when they're done, that is past them and that they're able to move on.
Mm-hmm.
Now you take our country, and our country, unfortunately, man, since slavery and the slave catcher days, man, I mean, there's always been an economic portion to incarceration. There's always
Mm-hmm.
been an economic portion to as a criminal justice system as a whole.
Yeah.
I think that we have to, as a society. Is it likely? I mean, hey, that's up for debate. But
Mm-hmm.
I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, I think that you and I are experienced enough and educated enough to know that the ways that we can fix society.
We are the new generation. We're
Right.
learning from
Yeah.
every previous generation.
If everyone was on the same page and have a willingness to do so, we could fix a lot of these society's problems. But I think that where we are now is that, like, there's so much of a financial motivation or financial aspect, man, to everything that we do. I mean,
Of course.
let's go to medical for a second.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a doctor, but
Yeah.
I do know that there's an incentive for doctors and the medical community to treat patients as opposed to heal them,
Yeah.
right?
I worked in the pharmaceutical industry for a few years, pharmaceutical sales, and there's no profit in the cure.
Right.
The profit is in
You
maintenance.
just said a word, bro. I think
Mm-hmm.
now take that principle that you just said
Mm-hmm.
and apply that universally through so many aspects. You can go
That's right.
legal, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's no profit in the cure. What is
Mm-hmm.
the cure? The cure is to start to eliminate crime, start to
Mm-hmm.
eliminate the prison systems and those thoughts of
And the
having to
repeat offenders who come
right
back in over and over
repeat
again,
offenders,
reprocessing.
right, cure the people. And I think that's what goes to the heart of the first question you asked me as to why mental health is, how mental health is an interplay in the criminal justice system. Man, there's no profit in the cure.
Mhm. So,
And
yeah. So let me ask you, with that being said, where you said there's a product that keeps the engine running, keep feeding the machine, with the term rehabilitation, like that's a term that gets used with criminal justice, legal system. So with that being said, we'll go into some of the ideas that you might have had and certain things that I see from on my end as a mental health provider, where I'm constantly seeing, well, uh, a few minor adjustments can be made. And the whole point of my platform now, it's Love's Kitchen ATL. The concept is dealing with relationships, but it's not just like romantic
right,
only. It's just the different walks of life that we're all having different experiences. But I do believe that there are similarities and commonalities between all of us if we take the time and just slow down and
absolutely,
level with each other. I have clients who, on the surface, I would never think I would have anything in common with, different socioeconomic backgrounds, um, ethnicity, culture, gender, sexual orientation, all of it. But
mhm,
after a few conversations, it's like, hey, we actually are not that different. We are more alike than we are different.
right.
So with the mental health component as it fits into the legal system, some ideas that have been floating around just for me lately, just I want to kind of throw at you and then hear your ideas, being on the inside of it, we would say, where you could have a a new component. Well, I guess you could maybe even call it an arm of justice, where it's not the criminal justice system but the mental health justice, where you can have the same structure. You don't cut out any of the things that are in place that the country would prefer to keep in place, but in order to maybe have jobs shifted and reallocated in different directions versus just a person who's sitting in county jail for 90 days because they couldn't afford bond, but they're sitting there for trespassing
Right.
or some minor offense like a dispute. Is there a possibility that you can see from your end where you could create a new component, separate department where the mental health is prioritized versus everything being criminal offense, charge A, charge B, charge A comes with 2 to 5 years or a certain fine? Like, is that possible to include into what we have already, do you think?
So the answer is yes, anything's possible.
All right.
Anything's possible, right? But I think that it is you know, people being recalcitrant to acknowledging the fact that there are great, and let's just take the word racial out for a second.
All
That's
right.
that's that's the easy.
That's right.
That's the 85-mile-per-hour fastball down the middle.
Mm-hmm.
That's the easy one to hit out of
Mm-hmm.
the park. Let's just go economic, right? Economics and access to opportunities.
Okay.
So when you have people that are from different economic backgrounds that don't have the access to opportunities, and then you start to look at the statistics and you start to say, okay, how does that impact how they're treated with the court system? I think you'll see that there are clear disparities in the way that mental health is and mental health treatment is included in, in the dispensement of how they decide to disperse with their crime. So, for example,
Mm-hmm.
crack epidemic.
All right.
We were all thrown in jail,
Uh-huh.
demonized, right?
Correct. Mm-hmm.
Even though, crack itself, we look back on it now and just see how it just like, it completely like just
Mm-hmm.
eliminated a portion of
Big
like
percentage.
yeah, a portion of our progress in this country as a
Mm-hmm.
people. as opposed to now the opioid crisis. Now, how
Absolutely.
there's so many resources that are being committed towards, addressing this opioid crisis and getting people the help that they need, right? So I think that, like, when you start to look at why one moves to the left and why one is directed on the path down to the right, the answer to that question is going to determine how, when, and where we start to build that extra arm of our criminal justice system to deal with the mental health issues. I think that we have to, as a society, decide that the welfare of the person as a whole, no matter the color, like I said, we can go down that road. That's a road we can walk down. But despite the color of a person, or despite their access to economics, or despite their access to opportunities and education, if we're going to help the person as a whole, the person, then once that question is answered in the affirmative, yes, that is our goal, that is our objective, then I believe you can start to see, the groundwork for something like this. Now, I'm going to take something that's completely unrelated, but I want to speak about it because it's something that people said could not be done in this country. So let's go to the college, right? And the NIL.
All
You
right.
know, 15, 20 years ago, there's no way you could play the players.
That's
There's
right.
no way, no way, no way, no way. But my contention was always, though, man, there are smart people out there that when people say, hey, we can't do something, the smart people sit down and figure out how it can be done. So as you see now, EA Sports in their new college football game, they just sent out agreements to players to sign. They're getting paid. You see players are getting paid. You see them getting paid now. Now it still has to be wrangled in a bit, but point is, it happened.
It happened.
So if that, and I know this is a much tougher, much more personable, and much more impactful subject matter. But my point is, overall, is that the smart people, the smartest people that solve any of the other problems that we've had, can sit down and figure out how to solve this problem. If indeed we can get past that question of, do we want to solve the problem?
That's right.
Because as of right now, Charles, and I think you would agree with me with saying, I mean, there seems to be there is some commitment, but there is no real deep, impactful commitment to the overall solving of that problem. How do we, battle mental health along in the criminal justice system? Now, once that is a question that is answered in the affirmative, and then the smart people sit down and say, start to determine how it can be done, those can be the first steps that we're taking towards making sure that we create an arm of our criminal justice system that deals with people as it relates to mental health and get them the help. Man, throwing somebody behind bars, I mean, yeah, you can save that person. You can stop them from committing another crime in the immediacy. But when you start to talk about, like, okay, now this person has to be released back into society, what are we doing to help that person, or that person committing that crime in itself, right? And I want to share another example. There was a young man I represented one time, man. I mean, like, he walked barefoot for 13 miles in the middle of the summer. If you've ever been in the country in the summertime, you know how that road gets. He walked barefoot 13, to the point to where when he got to his destination, the bottom of his feet were raw and blistering. And he walked in to speak with his mother's boss because he felt like his mother's supervisor at that time had said something derogatory towards her. And he asked to see that man because he wanted to engage him in a physical altercation. And it happened to be on a state job. So it was a state job,
Really?
state property. And so he was brought to the court. He was charged with a number of crimes, but for some reason, when he was, I filed him to have a medical evaluation because I didn't feel like he was competent. I didn't feel like he was in his right mind when he was doing this. He could pass for whatever reason. He would pass the competency test, right? But I mean, I'm like, well, I mean, Judge, look at him. I mean, how many of us in here are going to think it's a good idea to walk 13 miles in the scorching sun and put ourselves? I mean, the test may say that he's competent, but clearly his actions say otherwise, right? So I think it's some of that also this common sense approach.
That's right.
We evaluate
That's what
on a crime by crime basis, man. Like, how these people, how we treat these people regarding, some of the offenses they commit.
That makes me think of all of the domestic disputes when you think of um, the court system, family court, where children are involved.
Oh man,
And I've got personal experience and a lot of friends and clients who have gotten caught up in that web where there's a kid involved and there's two parents who don't get along. And we know that is a very common scenario.
right.
But instead of just taking the approach where it's all just, court, the statutes say XYZ, to accelerate the resolution a little bit quicker, because kids get caught up in this stuff for years.
Right.
And I'm not saying every relationship needs to work out. Some people aren't made to be together. That's fine.
Right.
But helping either them understand how to co-parent and the resources, because it's hard to get people in therapy. Like the people that need to be. I get a lot of people who are in therapy to deal with other people who won't go to therapy.
Right.
All day long.
Right.
And when I think about the correctional facilities, they constantly have recruiters sending me job postings that they want me to come down to this county, that county, and it's great money too. But I'm not going. I can work from virtually. I can work from anywhere. So I don't.
Right.
I don't have the motivation to go into that environment, especially where you don't know what to expect.
Right.
You probably will be protected, but it's just mentally to get over that hurdle. But
Yeah.
if it was a separate section where it's like, well, we're going to have certain people who are dealing with domestic things that can actually get a counseling. You don't even, like I was saying earlier, you don't need to be multiple degrees and a license. Usually you just got to be able to relate to a person,
Right.
and that could employ so many people who don't have a degree in psychology or counseling. But if they just were able to get a certificate that says, hey, we assess your psychological, evaluation says you're normal, you're
Right.
healthy. And
Right.
if you have a motivation, I know you got mechanics, barbers, every different truck drivers who can help, like that can give good advice. It doesn't always have to come from a therapist.
Right.
So that could be a way that, you can employ people. You can put specific targeted interventions in place for the things that aren't necessarily criminal. Certain things are definitely, criminal and should be handled the way they are.
Right.
But those are just, the ideas. And like you said, it's possible. Anything is possible. If the
Absolutely.
conversation and the next time we meet, we probably will follow up in terms of how laws get introduced and how they get
Right.
they get passed, and things can change essentially if the motivation is there. Because in my sales career, like my whole career between sales and mental health has been figuring out why people do what they do and how to motivate and influence behavior. And one quote we have in sales is "WIFT," WIFT. What's in it for them? That's what matters. And then the other quote is reasons come first, results come second. I use that all the time. If you know why you're doing something, if you have a strong motivation, your results will follow. So all of these changes that people can see the benefit of, it could benefit potentially of multiple sides.
Right.
But it's got to be agreed upon. Like you said, it's got to be people coming together and say, we all agree that this needs to change, improve.
Absolutely, brother. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So before we wrap up, any other ideas that you would like to share within this conversation? This is just the start, but I feel so inspired to continue to talk through this with you and other professionals and just people who have a heart and an interest in this. But is there any ideas that you've been thinking that could start to change the way things look?
Bro, listen, man. So about around 2014, 2015, man, I started to really become involved in mentorship.
Okay.
And so, like, man, I would just encourage, plead with, beg any able-bodied person, like you said. It could be a
Mhm.
barber, it could be a mechanic. It doesn't have to be anybody that's of a certain profession or certain. It doesn't have to be that,
Mhm.
man. but just any brothers, man, that have can spare some time to spend time with these young men. You
Mhm.
know, man, I was blessed to have a father, and so many things that my father taught me are things that are relevant on a daily basis. I mean, I like
Yeah.
again, I have had some trip ups in my life and everything, but at the end of the day, I still remain at the core, who
Mhm.
my father raised me to be.
Mhm.
And that's why I've been able to, take advantage of, have opportunities presented to me and take advantage of opportunities when I came in Atlanta because at my core of who I am.
Mhm.
But I would just say, man, like we can circumvent a lot of this, man. Like a lot of times, especially young Black males that I've had an opportunity to encounter, man, they just want to know somebody cares, man. They
That's
want to
right.
know someone cares. They want to know that someone has a vested interest in seeing them do well.
Mhm.
And once they know that you have their best interest at heart, man, you can pour so much into that young man, and that young man will appreciate it, man. Like I watched some of the kids I mentored go through the military, graduate college. I see one now; he's in politics, he's elected official.
Mhm.
I see some of these other young men, going one's about to go to NFL.
Mhm.
Probably, I think if he didn't go this year, he's going next year. I mean, so I've seen some of these young men, man, go on and do some wonderful things, and know that not that they needed me or any of these other gentlemen, but it couldn't have hurt. So I would just
Mhm.
say, man, one of the biggest things that we can do right now, without waiting on legislation, without waiting on
Yeah.
anybody else to decide
I
that
like
this is
that.
a
That's right.
problem, or
Mhm.
anybody else is a problem, we can go and we can personally, make it our mission is to spend time with these young men and women as they're in the developmental stages. And if they have parents, there's nothing wrong with supplementing what it is that they already have in place, because the more you can't have enough positive influences. And
Yeah.
also too, don't worry about if tell your story. Don't be afraid to tell your story to these
Mhm.
young people, because they need to see that, hey, if I made a mistake, or if I make mistakes, because sometimes the pressure can become immense. If I make
Mhm.
mistakes, I'm still worthy. I can still
Mhm.
pick myself up. I can still, keep going, man. And I thank God. I thank
Yeah.
God, brother. I thank God for this opportunity that He's presented to me, man, to be able
Mhm.
to be this beacon, man, to be a beacon of hope. And I just would just
Yeah.
I just ask other people, man, get involved, man. You just never know how much you can be impactful on someone's life and even change their trajectory just by showing them that you care and spending some time with them, man.
Oh man. Well, I want to thank you for the day, and I want to also give you your flowers. If anybody's out there following you, I know you recently had recognition for Black Men Success. You've been nominated for the 40 under 40. There was the preeminent attorney. Like, there's a lot of things that you've done. So congratulations on your success, and I really admire you. And your heart and your passion, like I talked about, is what convinces people. It convicts people.
Right.
So in the future, we'll pick this up, but I'll just kind of wrap up for the day, and we'll talk soon. I hope you do well, man.
Hey man, thank you, brother, for this opportunity, man. And I appreciate you, man. And just want really quickly, man, out
Yeah.
of every accolade I have hanging up on the wall, man, it was, just that the confidence instilled by other
Mhm.
people, that they believe and care to me, man. And also people like you give me an opportunity, man. So I just want to say thank you so much for this opportunity, man. I'm here if you need me, man, and let me know if I can ever be of assistance to you, brother.
All right. Thank you so much. We'll talk
All right.
soon.